So I'm here with a little impromptu video. Said the kid here. Thanks so much for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe, the whole deal. Um, so when I was in my last video and I was talking about, the last love after lockup episode because I'm internally very ratchet. Where we touched on religion for just a second, kind of Christmas and holidays, and I just wanted to explain a little bit as to the reason why I kind of feel the way I feel and I think the way that I think. So, as far as I'm concerned, in reference to Christianity, Jehovah's Witness, Baptist, any religion that is Christian based is not something that I subscribe to. As far as I'm concerned, that is our as Black people, that is the religion of our oppressors. And it's also the religion of colonization, and under the banner of a very white Christ. A lot of damage was done under, they didn't really even have to come up with reasons. It was just, colonization and the evil of basically that. And I was asked recently, do I celebrate Christmas and things like that, because I was talking in such a way where people probably wouldn't think that I do. I celebrate Christmas because I have custody of my little sister who's 14 and I want to give her like some good memories. But as far as like Christmas itself, like the holiday that is supposed to be Jesus' birthday, I think we all are old enough to know, or at least we've read enough to know that obviously, Jesus wasn't born in December. That's not his birthday. And keep people, because I always tell people I believe in God. I believe in the power of my ancestors. I believe in putting up offerings and petitions to my ancestors to ask for what I want, and things of that nature. A lot of Christians would automatically go to, you're worshiping false gods and idols and all that different stuff. I don't subscribe to Christianity because it's a religion that
stand by for radio check.
Basically tried to wipe us out. They convinced us that we were the descendants of Ham. They convinced us that we were cursed. Our skin was cursed. Oh, Jesus, hold on. Because I gotta do this first. I'm at work, so whatever.
Patrol 1.
Patrol clear. Okay. So, as I was saying, I've done my research when I was young. I can honestly say that I lost religion when I was about 15 years old. I was raised in a very Christian household. I have very religious grandparents on my father's side. And we used to spend the summers with them in North Carolina, in Albemarle, North Carolina, if anybody knows where the fuck that is. You know what? I'm never going to meet anybody who knows where the fuck that is. To this day, I haven't met anybody who's like, do you know where Albemarle, North Carolina is? And they're just like, North Carolina. So, and I used to spend summers with them. And my grandparents were, the short of it, they weren't good people. They used religion as a weapon. They used it as a way to get what they want. They used it as a way to manipulate. And my grandfather actually used it as a way to have underage mistresses and things of that nature. So I understand what it's like when people go to church and so on and so forth, but I also know what goes on behind the scenes, and how, the deacon is fucking this one, and then Sister Cookie is getting married to this one, but she fucking that one, and pastor's got, that little girl, is 15 years old, and the pastor's gonna take her into the back for communion, and we ain't Catholic. It's fine. So, and that was my grandfather, by the way. That's a real story, sadly enough. And so I was able to kind of see the good and the bad with that. But then when I was 15, I started reading a lot of books. I started to read a lot of books by David Icke, like Tales of the Time Loop and Children of the Matrix. And I feel like a lot of people think that I just read the Da Vinci Code, and I was just like, oh yeah, not for me. And that really wasn't the case. I just, especially coming to identifying myself as, a queer woman, and all of the shame that goes with that, all of the things that people who are supposedly Christian and supposed to all be about love and so on and so forth, and they're really quite hateful when you're different. And it's sad. It's truly sad. I've lost friends because of it, or I've distanced myself from certain people because of it. Because who wants to be friends with somebody who secretly thinks you going to hell because you're not doing right? And then on top of that, it's like, bitch, you know what? Not this video. Moving on. So, I was a very, precocious kid. I definitely wanted to know all of these things. So when I'm going down this research and I saw kind of how religion had kind of come up in the world, and I didn't realize that the Bible was about only 2,000 years old, and it was introduced during Roman times when I believe it was maybe they were called prime ministers, but Constantine, who was secretly pagan behind closed doors, was making everybody in the community Christian. And if you weren't a Christian, then you go to the Colosseum, they tear you to pieces, and it's a nice little spectacle, cruel and unusual Anglo-Saxon punishment. And the one thing I've realized is that the Bible has been used as a source of control since the beginning. To the point where there was a man, I believe his last name was Tyndale. I can't remember his first name, but he actually tried to convert the King James. He actually tried to convert the Bible from Latin. Sorry, the Bible, I think it was in Hebrew at the time. And he was trying to translate it into Latin so that the common person, because Latin was what the common person was learning at the time, so they would be able to read it. They would be able to read along and understand. And at that point, King James made a point to kill Tyndale before he could come out with the actual translation of the Bible. So that's actually how we came up with the King James Version, which has verses like respect Caesar's laws. And you would think to yourself, what does God care about Caesar's laws? Shouldn't God's laws be like above that? I just remember going through and reading a lot and things not adding up, especially as a Black woman, especially as a woman of color. Things were just not adding up. And I'll be honest with you, and this might be something that might offend some people, and I guess I can thank God that I don't have people that watch me, but I really don't feel like children should be taught religion of any kind at all. Like only because I feel like it alters the kid's mindset in reference to what's real, what's fairy tale, what's fake. I believe that Jesus was a man, and I believe that he lived. I believe that he was an olive-skinned Jew, because that's what people from the Middle East look like. And it's been very difficult for me to even be open about what I do or how I feel, because Black people are so staunchly Christian. And when you say anything against Christianity, just like any inert people, it's a fight. They will fight to their death to protect what has oppressed them. And for me, it's not something that I can do. I can't pretend. I'm not going to try and pretend. And I feel like, especially right now, I feel like I've kind of come into my own in a different way than I think I ever have before. And I am more open with my spiritual self than ever before. And it's like for Christians, you can only walk a spiritual pathway a certain way. Because I don't believe that sex before marriage is going to be a sin. I don't believe that. I don't believe that, like people having, they'll call them false gods and idols. I don't believe that when you have the little elephant on the ground and you see like people who have the Hindi religion and they're always giving like, offerings to their ancestors, Christians would be like, oh, you're worshiping a false god. I feel like more religion is the same than it is different. And I think that religion Christianity specifically has been used to manipulate people. Because even for the slaves, when they said they were cursed and they were the descendants of Ham, they even told the slaves, like, once you die, you can turn white so God can accept you. They'll tell them things like, you're cursed, so this is why you are a slave, but if you listen to me as if I was God, then you will make it into heaven. I feel like when a religion has those kind of connotations, that we have to look back and say, maybe this is not for us. Especially since in Africa, Christianity wasn't a religion that they came up with. We have, Orishas and Ifa and different things like that was what was worshipped and what was done. And I feel like, at least religiously, I really wish that Black people were not. I know that we are not a monolith, but I feel like religion-wise, I feel like that's the closest that we get to it, because it feels like we just all believe the same things, and anybody who steps outside of that, we're just gonna be like, oh, so you trying to, how do I put this? I was even told once in church that you shouldn't watch the news because it's secular TV. And then if you notice, a lot of these mass shooters are Christians. You know how people like always want to point out that a lot of the terrorists that we see, because we don't count the white people, terrorists that we see are Muslim or of Muslim descent. I think that goes to show that anything can be radicalized and used to murder. And I also think that because I'm still on this journey trying to find exactly, and I know that I finally feel a connection to my ancestors through what I'm doing right now. But I don't, there's just a lot of things that I won't like personally subscribe to, but I also am not going to bash someone if they worship Jesus, or if they are Christians, or if they put up Christmas trees and so on and so forth, because I'm probably going to put up a Christmas tree just because I like seeing the look on my sister's face when she comes out and she sees it. Like that for me is what, Christmas is about. It's got nothing to do with Jesus's birth. It's got nothing to do with Christianity as far as I'm concerned. Because it's not about, it just doesn't have anything to do with it. It's just a great time to sit and give thanks and love on one another. That's how I think of Christmas. Because, I feel like Christianity on a whole it's not a bad religion. I would never say, oh, people who do this or do that is like you're wrong, or it's bad, or what have you. I personally don't subscribe to it because of the history behind it. And I know that Christianity was used to basically erase the connection that I have with the mother country. And that's for every Black person living in the U.S. Because they were using Christianity to rationalize all of the decisions that they were making.